Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started here so everybody can have time to get some lunch afterwards. Today I'm going to be talking to you about the 40 developmental assets. First thing I want to do is tell you a little bit about me. My name is Edward Mears. I'm a prevention specialist for Preferred Family Healthcare. I've been a prevention specialist now for about 3 years. I service the service area 14 with Adair, Lewis, Knox, Scotland, Schuyler, Marion, Shelby, Clark, and Macon counties. My primary responsibility is to mentor community coalitions through the Strategic Prevention Framework and help them reduce substance use in their areas. Before I started doing this, I worked for 10 years in substance use and mental health, so I've got quite a bit of experience in that. And today, some of our learning objectives here today is just kind of get a feel for what the 40 developmental assets are and how they can help you in your service area or your county or your home or anywhere really. They're very important. A lot of people haven't heard of them. And I just wanted to give you a good overview what they are and how you could kind of use them and what the benefits of using the 40 developmental assets is. So, why do we need these? Why would we care about what the 40 developmental assets are? And the reason is that all young people need these assets. They're very important. And anybody can build them. Anybody, anywhere. The key to it is building relationships. A lot of times we think about programs or activities and things like that, but it's more about people. Interacting with each other, setting good examples for youth and things like that. We want to have it as an ongoing process. It's not something you just do once and then you just don't have to worry about it again. It's just constant. And we just want to always be working on it, always looking at different kinds of assets that we could be using. You can start wherever you can. You don't have to try real hard with this. It's a very simple thing, and a lot of people don't realize that. Small things make a big difference. Trying to make sure that your messages are consistent is a big part of it. You want to make sure that you're saying the same thing, and you don't want to try and change your message and be confusing. We want to be repetitive in this, and it builds up over time. And you want to start early. It's never too late. It doesn't matter if you're 20 years old, 16 years old, 80 years old. Anyone can do this, and it makes a big impact on the people that they're working with. Here's the big news flash. You're already doing it. People don't realize they're always using these assets. They're doing it every single day, whether they realize it or not. Because it's simple things. You're going to learn that you've been doing this stuff to youth all over the place without even realizing it. There are two types of assets that we're going to talk about. Again, there are 40 of them. 20 are external assets. These are supports, opportunities, the relationships. They're things used all across the different aspects of a youth's life. The other 20 are internal assets. These are their personal skills, their commitments and values. These are the things that you kind of instill in them by setting a good role model, by showing them how the world works or how you feel about the world, and they just kind of pick up on that from observing you and your behavior. So the first one we're going to talk about is external assets, and they're set into 4 categories: support, empowerment, boundaries and expectations, and constructive use of time. So support it's what young people need to be surrounded by people who love and care for them and appreciate and accept them. Just letting them know that you know that they're there, that you care about them, that you want to be around them. Empowerment is young people need to feel valued and valuable. This happens when youth feel safe and respected. Boundaries and expectations, that's kind of a clear one. We need to let them know that there are certain things that are unacceptable and certain things we expect from them. And they don't need to be outrageous either. They need to be common sense type things. And then, of course, constructive use of time, which a lot of people kind of feel like the Facebook and stuff like that. It's not really constructive use of time. Doing other things, projects, learning, stuff like that. We're going to get a little bit more into those. So we're going to talk about support first. Again, young people need to be surrounded by people who love and care for them and appreciate them. The first one we're going to talk about is family support. This is when the family provides high levels of love and support. Now, obviously, if you're not related to them, you can't provide family support. But if we've all got brothers and sisters, nieces and nephews, parents, and stuff like that that we interact with, that we can be a big part of for that asset. Another way we can do that is to, ask, do you feel like you're being supported? Never give up on the youth. Try to understand them. Don't try to, impart your experiences on them. Positive family communication is when the young person and her or his communicate, or his parents communicate positively, and the young person is willing to seek advice and counsel. A lot of youth these days don't want to talk to their parents about some things, whether it's substances or girls or boys, or if they're getting picked on in school. We want to set it up so that they feel like they can come to us and talk to us about these things. We want to be open and not critical of them. Other adult relationships is another form of support. This is basically anyone in the community that they can feel safe with, that they can go and get support from, and that not necessarily parents, whether it's uncles or aunts or the neighbor or someone that has been in their life and is a positive role model. Having a caring neighborhood is another big part. That one's kind of self-explanatory. It's being part of a community or a neighborhood that accepts the youth, that feels that the youth is important, and uses them to that effect. Tells them daily, you're great around here. You do lots of nice things, and it can be simple words. Caring school climate, we see more of that every day through things like Peace Builders and other programs similar to that, where we teach the youth, how to use their words, how to say my feelings are hurt, or let's not bully each other. Gives them a little bit of buy-in in their school as well as having teachers that just go out of their way to tell them how much they appreciate what they're doing and that they're working hard and things are great. Parent involvement in school, that one's another kind of self-explanatory one. Parents are involved actively in making sure that the youth succeed. Checking report cards, making sure homework's getting done, maybe helping out with the homework whenever things are hard. Just really being there for them. These are types of support, the first category, that we can do. The next one is empowerment. Young people need to feel that they're valuable in their community, in their house, in their lives. They need to feel that they're safe and respected. Community values, that's another big one. The young person needs to know that the community has buy-in to them, that they see them as a great resource in the community. So doing things like volunteering and stuff like that, getting the kids out there to be active. The youth is a resource. They have given useful roles in the community. Maybe they're doing, again, the volunteering type things, or working somewhere, or helping out at a food pantry, just having responsibilities there. Service to others. The young person serves in the community for at least an hour a week. Again, volunteering is another great way to do that, helping out somewhere. Safety, they need to feel safe at home. They need to feel safe at school, in their neighborhood. That's kind of one of the harder things that we see these days, is that, it's not safe for youth just everywhere. And so we want to try and make that an important part of their life, to make sure that they can feel like they go outside and ride their bike, or go hang out with their friends outdoors and not have to worry about things that are going to happen. So next, we're going to move into the boundaries and expectations. They need clear rules, consistent consequences, and encouragement when they do their best. So family boundaries is, again, the clear rules at home and the consequences for when those rules are broken that are consistent every time. They don't change. You don't get worse ones when you break this rule. You get the same punishment every time. And parents show that they are monitoring the youth. Where have you been? What time will you be home? I expect you to be in the house by this time. Those kinds of things. School boundaries. Again, the schools have clear rules and consequences for when the rules are broken. Youth need to know where the limits are, where the lines are, so they don't push them too far. Neighborhood boundaries. Similar again, take responsibility for monitoring the youth. So you have people in the community that say, hey, I noticed you were over here kind of later. I noticed this, and they're communicating with the parents or the youth, just letting them know that they're concerned or that they appreciate them and want to make sure they're being safe. Adult role models, if you're that role model, make sure you're just displaying that good personal character. Being responsible. Whenever youth see us acting irresponsibly, then they see that as an acceptable behavior, and then it just increases that type of thing. If they see us drinking in public frequently, or using substances, or yelling, or anything like that, that learned behavior. Positive peer influences. This is another tricky one. Just having good people that they're spending their time with, that are not engaging in those risky behaviors and stuff like that. And that's another place where the parents can come in and try to be a positive role model and show those other youth, your kids' friends, and that they are concerned about them, that they appreciate them. Use those other assets as well. High expectations. We don't actually just expect you to get a D in school. We want you to go for those A's and B's. We want you to perform at your best. And that's not just the parents, but that's teachers, that's aunts, uncles, whoever it is, has those high expectations, and they make sure the youth knows that when they notice that something's not going quite right. Constructive use of time. So again, we've got a lot of problems these days with the iPhones and all that, and the Facebook, and I can't even name all of them. And we want to make sure they're doing more creative things. Let's use their brains, use their hands a little more. Spend time outside or doing these types of things for at least 3 or more hours a week. Not just once in a blue moon, but weekly. Maybe it's practicing music. Maybe it's doing a craft. Just any kind of creative thing. Get their brain working on something besides social media or television or video games. Youth programs. There's a lot of these that they can be doing. Clubs, other organizations at school or in the community. You got Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. You got church groups. You got groups at the school. I know there are just tons and tons of different groups they could be in. FFA, 4-H, stuff like that. Get them out there doing that. Engage with those positive peers and other role models. And they need to be doing that for several hours a week as well. Religious community is another big one. They spend more time in activities of religious institution. They're going to the church and hanging out. It could be the same thing that they would do in the community, but they're doing it in a church setting or a religious community instead, for more of those values. Time at home is also important. They need to have fun with friends, but they need to spend a few hours a night with their family doing things at home. Let's see. So that was it for the external. Now we're going to talk a little bit more about internal assets. So we're going to talk about the commitment to learning and positive values and social competencies, positive identity. So let's get into those. So commitment to learning. The young person needs a sense of the lasting importance of learning and belief in their own abilities. So this falls right in line with some of those internal or external assets we talked about. So achievement and motivation. So a young person is motivated to do well in school. So they want to get those good grades, not necessarily just to impress their parents or because they're being told to, because they feel like they need to do it. That's something that they want to do. And we get that, again, by showing that in ourselves, that we want to achieve things, just being a good role model. School engagement, the young person is actively engaged in learning, falls right in line with that achievement. Homework, the young person reports doing at least 1 hour of homework every day. And as again, if you remember the first assets we talked about, is just a commitment to learning and making sure that they're doing their homework, making sure they're getting those good grades and noticing them for it, telling them, hey, I noticed a great grade. Great job. I think you're doing awesome. Or bonding to the school. The person cares about his or her school. A lot of Tiger pride here in Kirksville where we're at. Just liking the sports teams, making sure the school is taken care of. They see people throwing trash, they want to clean it up. Good moral character, really what it's all about. Reading for pleasure, we don't see a lot of that anymore. I know personally I don't care for reading, but if we can get, we got to do it to show the kids how it's done so that they feel an urge to do that. 3 or more hours a week really helps out a lot in that area. Positive values. The young person needs to develop strong guiding values or principles to help them make healthy life choices. The first one is caring. The person places a high value on helping other people. We talked about volunteering and stuff earlier. That really helps with helping them with caring, showing them that you care for other people. Equality and social justice. They have a high value on promoting equality and reducing hunger and poverty. We see a lot more of that these days than we used to. Kids want to help people. Again, you could be volunteering, helping them figure out stuff like that. Integrity, that one kind of goes with self-explanatory. Young person acts on conviction and stands up for their beliefs. They don't see someone do something and not say something about it. And they try to do the best thing that they can and care for others. Responsibility, honesty. The young person tells the truth even when it's not easy. That's a pretty tricky one to get across. And you can teach them that by being honest yourself, which is not that hard to be honest, whether we like it or not. Responsibility, the young person accepts and takes personal responsibility. Comes along with that honesty. I did this, it's my fault, and I'm willing to take my punishment for it. Restraint, they believe it is not, they don't need to be sexually active, they don't need to use drugs or alcohol. This is a big one right here. They need to be able to say no to these things and understand why they're saying no. We talk to them about it when they're young, try to get it across to them that it's not safe, there are consequences to these kinds of actions. Social competencies. Young people need the skills to interact effectively with others, to make difficult decisions, and to cope with new situations. Planning and decision making. They know how to plan ahead. They know how to make choices. We have to help them with this. We have to teach them how to plan, teach them how to make good decisions, and hope that it sticks and that they use those skills. Interpersonal competencies. So they know how to have empathy. They know how to be sensitive, and they have good friendship skills. Some of that can be hard to teach, but again, we model this type of behavior, and they learn from us. Cultural competence. So we want to be sensitive to other cultures that are not our own. They're comfortable around people that are different, whether it's racially or ethnically or culturally. We have a big world out there, and there are a lot of people that come from other countries to ours, and we want to make sure that we show our youth to understand others before they understand us, make it important for them. Resistance skills. They can say no to some of these negative behaviors. They can avoid peer pressure. They don't have to say yes to the drugs. They don't have to worry about losing friends. They understand that saying no is more important than keeping the friend sometimes. Peaceful conflict resolution. This falls right in line behind those resistance skills. They're able to resolve these conflicts without becoming violent, without yelling and screaming. They're able to say, listen, I'm kind of angry. I want to talk about this. Can we take a break? Whatever those skills are. Again, some of this is learned behavior. And so maybe we don't yell and scream at people. That shows them how to do some of this stuff. And positive identity. Young people need to believe in their own self-worth and feel that they have control over things that happen to them. So personal power. The young person feels he or she has control over things that happen to them. So sometimes including them in some of those decision making, whenever there's family things that are coming up, we say, this is what we have going on. We have some problems. These are some of the things that we've come up with. Include them in those decisions. Allow them to make their own decisions. Sometimes if a behavior is an issue, you say, listen, this behavior is a problem. How do you think we should handle this? How should we change this? What needs to happen? Self-esteem, that's another one. The young person needs to feel like they have high self-esteem. Like we have a question, what is the best way for coalition members to build assets with the youth? Are there any assets that would be better to focus on than others? So when it comes to asset building, we work a lot more on those external assets than the internal ones. The internal ones come as a result of the others. So when we work on external assets, such as the boundaries, the constructive use of time, empowerment, those things are a little easier to work on actively. So empowering youth, one way that a coalition member or community member or anyone could help work on something like that would be to maybe ask a youth to teach them something. That's one way to empower them, let them know that they have a skill that maybe I'm not so great at, and they could actually do that. I have some other stuff I was going to talk about a little later that might answer that question as well. So I'm going to just set that aside for just a moment, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. Let's see, so I was talking about self-esteem. So trying to help them have that high self-esteem, tell them that you notice things about them, be involved with them. You know, again, if you're asking them to teach them a skill, that's going to give them high self-esteem right there. A sense of purpose is another good one. Young person reports that my life has a purpose, and we can guide them in that. You know, say this is the kinds of things that we want to do. Give them goals, or have them come up with goals rather, is another good way to have them do that. You know, what do you want to be when you grow up? You know, how can you work towards that? Stuff like that. And then positive view of the personal future, kind of very similar. They're very optimistic about their future. They think that they're going to do great things. And all those assets just kind of build on that one too. When you have high self-esteem, whenever they have personal power and a sense of purpose, that stuff really builds on that positive, optimistic outlook on things. And that is easy for anyone to do. We already do a lot of these things. I mean, every time you say, you know, hi to a kid and you know their name, it tells them that there's an adult over here that knows me. They know what they know my name, they know where I'm from, things like that, just being a caring adult. I have a handout here. Yes, here it is. I was going to put this up. I wanted to show this. So this is a handout from one of the workbooks that we acquired and we hand out. This is for younger kids because there's no wrong age to work on assets. This is a handout from an activity book that we give out to teachers, coalition members, things like that. And it tells right here on the top right corner which values we're working on. So positive family communication, it's the second asset is what it tells us. And it's just simple. Draw a picture of something that makes your family laugh. And it gets that youth to thinking about it. You know, ask them, what's happening in there? Or did this really happen? Did you make it up? This is for, you know, preschool or kindergarten to third grade age range. But it makes them think about their family and being together, bonding, things like that. It works on that communication. You know, they're going to go home, they're going to talk to their family about it, they're going to laugh about it, stuff like that. And it's just one way. This is one page out of a huge book that we use to help teach them some of these asset building skills. Some other ways that you can work on asset building is, you know, talk to your youth. Let them know that their opinion counts. You know, we talked about some involvement in the community. We talked about like volunteering and things like that. Have an activity, have an event. If a coalition's doing an event, ask youth to help and put them in charge of something. You know, if they have a multiple stations set up at your event, maybe you ask them to run one of those stations or a couple of those stations. Put them in charge of some other people if that's what they need. And it raises that self-esteem. It gives them some personal power. It gives them higher expectations for themselves. You know, they can be a positive influence on their peers. That's one great. Anytime a coalition does anything, they should try to include as many youth as they possibly can in that event, no matter how big or how small it is. We always want to be growing their confidence, and they're really the next wave. You know, once the coalition has those youth, they're just never going to stop growing. You know, maybe something that a community could do, a coalition could do, is plan a garden or something, or a tree plantings day or something like that. get the youth to have some more buy-in in their community, have them help clean up. Stuff like that is another great way to help them feel more connected, have that caring neighborhood, or and the community is certainly going to value a youth that's out there cleaning up or out there doing things like that. Some of the reasons that we want to work on these assets is this is just a little bit of data, and we can see on the left-hand side it tells us the different colors, and the yellow is the range of youth that have 31 to 40 of the assets that we've discussed. So you can see that they succeed in school. 57% succeed in school whenever they have 31 to 40 assets, where the 0 to 10 is only 10% of those kids are succeeding. Values diversity, again, look how high that yellow is. The more of those assets that they have, the much better that they're going to do on these things. Maintain good health, exhibit leadership, just big numbers on that. Some of the more big ones here is like problem alcohol use. 39% of youth that have 0 to 10 of those assets are experiencing problem with alcohol. Only 2% with 31 to 40 of those assets are having any issues with that. And then illicit drug use, 0% for 31 to 40 of those assets. And then over here, 5% for 0 to 10. Sexual activity and violence, again, just big differences whenever we instill those assets into our youth. So what should you do now? What's next? Think about the youth that you see every day. Think about whether they're your kids, your neighbor's kids, whatever the case may be. Think about those kids in your life. Ask them how they're doing. How's your day going? Hey Steve, how are you doing? Hey Jessica, are you feeling okay? You doing all right? I noticed that you were doing this great thing. I noticed this. Way to go. Tell them that you care about them. Whether it's your family member or just some other youth. Whatever your role is. Within certain lines. I know some people are professional. Teachers have to be careful what they say, but just respect those boundaries in your own life. But tell them that you care. Hey, I noticed that you're not feeling too good today. I want you to know that I'm thinking about you. I hope you get better. Okay? Ask them what you can do to help. Be a positive role model. Don't display the type of behaviors that you don't want to see in the youth. Show them what they should do. Okay? And do what you can to increase their self-esteem. Always be telling them that they're doing great, or that they're amazing. Whatever it takes to just build that self-esteem for them. If you look in the bottom right-hand corner next to the chat box, you're going to see a bunch of files here. Go ahead and feel free to click those and download all of those. These are all different ideas on how you can build some assets in kids. And some of these are broken down by age range. You have 3 to 5, 8 to 12, 12 to 18, 5 to 7. There's a checklist you can fill out to see if those assets are being met. There's even assets for infants. And I encourage you to download all of those just as give you a good idea what you can do to help build some of these assets. That's kind of all I have for this. If there are any questions, I would be willing to answer those. If anyone has a question. While I'm waiting for some questions, I would encourage everyone to go to this link. Please fill out this survey. This is pretty valuable information for me. Let me know what I can do better or how I can improve my webinars. So I would appreciate that. And we hope you join us for our next webinar. Just be looking out on our Facebook page at PFH Prevention on Facebook to find out what's coming next and when that will be. And that's all I have for you guys. There's no more questions. I thank you for your time and hope to see you again.